study halls, they're in a class.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah. Yes.
If you were to go back to 9 sections and increase the classes to 26, how many teachers would you say, just as an example, in one grade level?
2.
2. It's not very much of a compromise.
Right. And then you'd be back to the study halls as well.
Oh, you would?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And where we've not addressed this is in the general arts, because you can see there we have 28 sections. Now this is art, music, physical education, technology, but there are only 8 sections, and so this has impacted the class size there. And we've also increased the number of teaching sections, so that all of the general arts are teaching 6 classes a day, versus 5 in the core subject areas.
Is that going to be a problem?
I think in terms of actual time, because the core subject teachers also teach in, not teach, but have responsibility in the collaboration time.
Okay.
And that's when they meet with their counterparts in special education. That doesn't happen on the general arts. In grade 7, the 4 subject areas, English, ELA, English Language Arts, Math, Science, Social Studies, you can see that, see how in ELA it says 20 sections? We actually, in the 7th grade, provide 2 core subjects that make up English Language Arts. There's a writing component, and then there's a literature component. So we could break that out, but that's why it shows 20. 10 in math, 10 in science, 10 in social studies. And then in world language, you can see that the majority of students are taking Spanish. There's 1 section of French. But even with that, you can see that the class sizes in these world languages is over 26.
Introducing kids to a world language, you would want to have smaller classes so you can get the one-on-one, because that's obviously a difficult task for them.
And in the general arts and physical education, the class sizes average 29, 28 to 29. In the 8th grade, we have added Spanish or French as one of the core subjects. So there is some variation here. In English Language Arts, there are 10 sections, and the reason for that is that we have some students who are not taking a world language. So they're in, there would be 9 sections of English Language Arts plus a second class for those students not taking a foreign language. And then 9 sections in math, science, social studies. But again, only 8 sections in the general arts, which pushes the class size up. So this would be an area that definitely next year, if we were able to, I would be advocating doing something with the general arts. The class sizes are too high. I also want to point out, we don't have the numbers for chorus because that's after school or before school. So it's no longer part of the program. But you can, I want to point out what's happening with band, and look at the numbers. Go back 2 years ago when we offered band as during the day, part of the curriculum in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We were running upwards of 40 students. And this year, 10 in the 6th grade, no one in the 8th grade, and 7 students in the 7th grade. So that 1 year elimination has in effect had an incredibly negative impact on the program. And this will translate into a greatly diminished high school program because we're not feeding the program. Now, we are trying to do that in our elementary school to try to restore back, but it shows you what a 1 year hit will do. That's a dramatic fall off to go from, 39 students in the 6th grade down to 10, and from 34 in the 7th grade and 8th grade down to 7. All right, the high school, I won't go through all of this because this is broken out by department. As Mr. Bernard said, we were able to bring on board with the FY09 budget several new positions, and this has helped the class sizes to bring them into a more reasonable level, but there still remain some hot spots, and I would particularly look at history and social studies as an area where the class sizes are higher than what we would like to see. In the business area, there are upwards of 30 students in a class, and in some of the fine arts, for example, basic introduction to art, we have 29 to 30 students. How are you creative? How are you allowing a teacher to actually interact with that number of students and have quality time is a challenge.
Do we have the option to reduce the art requirement?
We have the option to change any graduation requirement. We require 2 years of fine arts.
And that's not a state requirement?
No, but when you look at the state has set requirements for entry into the UMass system, and so world languages, for example, and
That's
other,
where we get
4
that
years of
2-year requirement.
right. So we're trying to build. We're not putting anything extraordinary here. We're trying to build what we think is a comprehensive requirement, and then hold students accountable for that.
Well, because you mentioned when the class sizes, particularly in the arts, start to get up near 30, the more serious students don't have that time.
Right.
And so we may find ourselves, reducing or requiring it, and it saves a position or a piece of a position, but it might actually return a quality program, although not a well-rounded program. Not every student would be introduced to it if we don't the requirements.
Again, I would argue, based on what we saw tonight with our students, that the ability to look at problem solving, and it's problem solving, whether it's in, we heard from Chrissy in terms of theater, there's tremendous learning that goes on there, and to the ability of students to think about an idea from the ECO team, to put that together, to coordinate a plan, to make it happen, requires very definite discipline in the arts, and not to include that in our program, I think would be doing a disservice, and not asking kids to take that on as part of their requirement as well. So the goal here is not to turn every student into a musician or an artist, but to be thinking the kind of problem solving that goes through in whether it's in a theater program or whether it's in an art program. There's very definite skills. There are very definite skills that a student acquires that may not, it's not the artist that they're aiming for, but it's the kind of skill that will definitely serve them well in whatever learning they do in the future. And I think the same is true in terms of business. I mean, we require that students take courses in these areas for a reason.
And I agree. It's just keeping an eye towards where we're going to cut for next year to come in to present a balanced budget, not that we have to endorse it.
Right. Yeah, the other thing I want to point out is, while we are doing much better in class size, there are still probably in the range of 25 classes at the high school that have between 25 and 30 students. And you look at, you say that kind of these kids have the thirst for, participating in new courses. As John mentioned, the novel writing course has 28 students, and I think the teacher's doing a great job in that course, but she's going to have to limit how much she can actually read. If each kid's writing, they're going to shoot to write between 100 and 150-page novel. That's 28 times that, and the teacher's not going to be able to read every page and every chapter. And, you know, she's gonna do a great job. You look at the probability and statistics class that we added, 2 sections of 24 each. That's great, but these kids they want to explore new classes, and I know we talk a lot about the school to career. Every class, 30, 27, 30, 30, 30, 26, one class 18, accounting, and then intro to business is 30. I mean, there's too many kids in every one of those really, except for the accounting class, which has 18. And I think, you know, funds permitting, we've got to continue to try to work it at bringing some of these class sizes down. But in general, you know, we're going in the right direction. I think that's all we can do given the resources that we have. Any questions on class sizes?
What bothers me in addition, you look at some of these, some of the top of the range here in math, calculus and geometry and pre-calculus, the top ends is 28, 30 kids in a class. That doesn't quite seem like it is a very good environment.
No. It makes it much more difficult to give the extra help that some of the students are going to need in those classes. So we'll continue to work at that. But I think this year we've been able to, because of the increased funds, been able to tackle that, and some of the things we've done, changing some of the changes made at the middle school, we've been able to, especially that 6th grade, having 20 kids per class that's great. That's what we want.
The problem is that we're so close to the bottom.
Right.
So tight.
Yeah.
There's no place to go. So we're looking at maybe, you know, by shutting off the lights in every room very diligently and watching the paper and using both sides of it, and each one of these little workarounds that we've got, and cutting things back that are going to hurt the program, but are things that we could survive with for a few days. You know, you can go without food for a month. You can go without water for 3 days. I mean, you know, you get down to the basics. You can cut back, but there's a limit to how much you can cut back without truly cutting the bone out and moving the marrow out even. And we just shouldn't be at that stage. That's shortchanging the kids.
Further comments? Nice stuff. Okay, next, bills and payroll, they all signed, or?
One more second.
One more signature? Okay. Minutes. We have the regular meeting from October 14th. I went through and I didn't find anything. I don't know if anybody else had any changes. If not, I'll set the motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous. And then we have the executive session also from October 14th. Again, I saw no changes required unless somebody else saw something.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Okay. Next, budget update, Carl?
Yes, I want to take a minute to talk about the end-of-year report. We have a copy of that for the chairman to sign tonight. The end-of-the-year report is the report that quantifies all of the school department spending for the prior year, and so the one that we will be submitting to the Department of Education is the one for the recently ended fiscal year 2008. You may recall that just about 2 months ago we got the audit results on the FY 2007 audit of the end-of-the-year report and had that audit with no findings. The reason I wanted to take a minute to talk about it tonight is because of its importance. All of the information that is reported on North Reading's finances originates with the end-of-the-year report. Enrollment, spending by category,